what is going on, and welcome back to What Shall We Do Next. I'm Mike, your host, and I hope you guys are having the best day ever. Before I get started, guys, if you are new here, please subscribe. If you haven't already done that, we're on the road to 95,000 subscribers, and I would love you to join me on this journey. So hit subscribe and join the fam. And also, guys, go follow me on all my social media. Links are in the description. I have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and even Snapchat, so go follow me on all of those. And as you guys know, I recently started a Facebook account, so you can add me on Facebook and we can be Facebook friends, so go do that. Link is in the description. And finally, be sure to turn on the notification bell right next to the subscribe button, that way you get notified every time I upload a video. Thank you! Once again, I am coming back at you guys with another creepy video, and today we are talking about another creepypasta. And this creepypasta is called Mr. Widemouth. So, the story of Mr. Widemouth is a scary creepypasta story about a 5-year-old boy who has an imaginary friend that may not be so imaginary after all. But enough of the jibber jabber, let's get right over to the story. Mr. Widemouth. When I was a child, my family moved around a lot. We never stayed in the same place for a long time, and it seemed as if we were always on the move. Because of this, many of my early memories are fuzzy and unclear. However, there is one period of time that remains as clear in my mind as though it happened yesterday. I often wonder whether these memories were simply hallucinations caused by the long sickness I experienced that spring. But in my heart, I know they were real. We were living in a large house on the outskirts of the city. As a family of 3, we didn't really need such a big home, and there were a number of rooms that were never used during the 5 months we spent there. In some ways, it was a waste of space, but it was the only house we could find at the time that was close to my father's place of work. The day after my 5th birthday, I came down with a terrible fever. The doctor said I had to rest in bed for 3 weeks and concentrate on getting well. It was a horrible time to be bedridden as we were getting ready to move and most of my toys were already packed away in the boxes. My bedroom was almost completely empty, and I had very little to keep myself entertained. My mother brought me some ginger ale and a few books several times a day. Other than that, there was precious little for me to do. I was always bored and grew more miserable by the day. I don't exactly recall how I met Mr. Widemouth. I think it was about a week after I was diagnosed with the fever and confined to bed. My first memory of him is when I asked him if he had a name. He told me to call him Mr. Widemouth because his mouth was large. In fact, everything about him was large in comparison to his body. His head, his eyes, his crooked ears, but his mouth was by far the largest. "You look kind of like a Furby," I said as he flipped through one of my books. Mr. Widemouth stopped and gave me a puzzled look. "Furby? What's a Furby?" he asked. I shrugged. "You know, the toys, the little furry robots with the big ears. You can pet them and feed them, almost like they're real pets." "Oh," replied Mr. Widemouth. "You don't need to have one of those. They aren't the same as having a real friend." I remember that Mr. Widemouth seemed to disappear every time my mother stopped by to check in on me. "I hide under your bed," he later explained. "I don't want your parents to see me because I'm afraid they won't let us play together anymore." We didn't do much during the first few days. Mr. Widemouth just looked at my books, fascinated by the stories and pictures they contained. The 3rd or 4th morning after I met him, he greeted me with a large smile on his face. "I have a new game we can play," he said. "We have to wait until after your mother comes to check on you, because she can't see us play it. It's a secret game." My mother came in with a few more books and some soda at the usual time. After she left, Mr. Widemouth slipped out from underneath my bed and tugged me at the hand. "We have to go to the other room at the end of the hallway," he said. I objected at first because my parents had forbidden me to leave my bed without their permission. Mr. Widemouth persisted until I finally gave in. The room at the end of the hall had no furniture or wallpaper. Its only distinguishing feature was a window opposite the doorway. Mr. Widemouth darted across the room and gave the window a firm push, flinging it open. Then, he beckoned to me and told me to look out at the ground below. We were on the second floor of the house, but it was on a hill, and from this angle, the drop was more than 2 floors due to the incline. I like to play pretend up here, Mr. Widemouth explained. I pretend there is a big, soft trampoline below this window, and I jump. And if you pretend hard enough, you bounce back up like a feather. I want you to try. I was a 5-year-old with high fever, so I wasn't thinking very clearly, as I looked down and considered the possibility. It's a long drop, I said. But that's all part of the fun, he replied. It wouldn't be fun if it was only a short drop. If it were that way, you might as well just bounce on a real trampoline. I toyed with the idea, picturing myself falling through thin air, only to bounce back up to the window on something unseen by human eyes. But the realist in me prevailed. Maybe some other time, I said. I don't know if I have enough imagination. I could get hurt. Mr. Widemouth's face contorted into a snarl, but only for a moment. Anger gave way to disappointment. If you say so, he sighed. He spent the rest of the day under my bed, quiet as a mouse. The following morning, Mr. Widemouth arrived holding a small box. I want to teach you how to juggle, he said. Here are some things you can use to practice before I start giving you lessons. I looked in the box. It was full of knives. My parents will kill me, I shouted, horrified that Mr. Widemouth had brought knives into my bedroom. My parents would never allow me to touch them. I'll be spanked and grounded for a year. Mr. Widemouth frowned. It's fun to juggle with these. I want you to try. I pushed the box away. I can't. I'll get in trouble. Knives aren't safe to just throw around in the air. Mr. Widemouth's frown deepened into a scowl. He took the box of knives and then slid himself under my bed. He remained there for the rest of the day. I began to wonder how often he was under there. I started having trouble sleeping after that. Mr. Widemouth often kept me up at night, saying he put a real trampoline under the window, a big invisible one. He said that I couldn't see it in the dark. I always declined and tried to go back to sleep, but Mr. Widemouth persisted. Sometimes, he stayed by my side until early morning, encouraging me to jump. He wasn't so fun to play with anymore. My mother came in one morning and told me that I was well enough to go outside and walk around. She thought the fresh air would do me good, especially after being confined to my room for so long. Ecstatic, I put on my sneakers and trotted down to the back porch, yearning to feel the sun on my face. Mr. Widemouth was outside waiting for me. I have something I want you to see, he said. I must have given him a weird look because he added, It's safe, I promise. I followed him and he led me to a trail that ran through the woods behind the house. This is an important path, he explained. I have lots of friends about your age. When they were ready, I took them down this path to a special place. You aren't ready yet, but one day I hope to take you there. I returned to the house wondering what kind of place lay at the end of that trail. 2 weeks after I met Mr. Widemouth, we packed the last of our belongings into a moving truck and we were about to set off on the long drive to our new home. I considered telling Mr. Widemouth that I would be leaving, but even at 5 years old, I was beginning to suspect that perhaps his intentions were not to my benefit, despite what he claimed. For this reason, I decided to keep my departure secret. It was 4 a.m. by the time we were ready to leave. My mother helped me into the truck and my father was sitting behind the wheel. I placed my head against the window, hoping to get some sleep before the sun came up. As we backed out of the driveway, I looked up and saw Mr. Widemouth's silhouette in my bedroom window. He stood there, motionless, until the truck was about to turn onto the main road. He gave a pitiful little wave goodbye, a steak knife in his other hand. I didn't wave back. Years later, I was passing through the area and decided to return and pay a visit to that house. I found that the piece of land our house had stood on was empty, except for the foundation. The house had burned down a few years after we left. Out of curiosity, I followed the trail that Mr. Widemouth had shown me. Part of me expected him to jump out from behind a tree and scare the living daylights out of me. But I felt that Mr. Widemouth was gone, somehow tied to the house that no longer existed. The trail ended at a small cemetery, and I noticed that many of the tombstones belonged to children. And that is the end of that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this story. It was pretty creepy. Kids, like I always say, guys, kids are strange little weird creatures. They do these kind of things, like imaginary friends. Man, kids are creepy. But my question to all of you for question of the day is, did you ever have an imaginary friend when you were a child? Let me know in the comment section. That is question of the day. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please slap a like on it. Let's see if we can go for 50 million likes on this video. I would really appreciate that. And if you guys didn't see my previous video, which was a pretty disturbing story, if you guys didn't see it, it was a story on Smile Dog. If you guys haven't watched that, I suggest you watch it. Click right here on the outro when it comes on, and you can watch that. Or if you want to watch another random video, you can click this side of the outro and it will do that too. But remember the most important thing of all, guys, chase your dreams. I love you all. Don't let anybody bring you down, and I'll see you back here tomorrow for another video. Peace out.